He's led workshops from Tokyo and Portland and shared his work at top conferences. Today, he will talk about Radiance Fields 101 and how this tech brings us closer to the metaverse. Hi, Lucas. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your cutting-edge expertise with Hong Kong's tech enthusiasts.
Hello, super nice to be here with you this evening, and I'm delighted to be invited to share my latest insights with you. Looking forward to it, really.
Thanks. Let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm the CTO of Innovation, running the company with Adeline. Sorry for the house reach tonight. Adeline is super busy expanding AAL's influence in Europe and Mid East this month, so her flight just took off. I would also like to say a little bit more about the AAL MICS. This is a regular interactive showcase that highlights breakthrough work from founders and innovators like Lucas, the AI and creative technological fields. Your knowledge sharing today will inspire not only personal growth of our audience, but also advance the APAC innovation community. Your unique topic tonight is like a key piece of the innovation puzzles. Probably let's start with some relaxed, chilled questions. I see actually you travel a lot between Hong Kong and Portland. So where are you right now?
So correct. Yeah, this year has been lots of traveling. So currently I'm in Warsaw, Poland, but I've just been to Hong Kong a few weeks ago. Yes.
I see. What's the jobs keep you busy recently?
So recently I've been dividing my job between my workday between basically teaching students and consulting for digital reality, digital capture, 3D capture companies all over the world. So I'm learning to share with my students and with audiences like yourselves, basically.
It sounds like currently your role is focusing on educator, and your education can be split into to students and to professionals, right?
Yes, true that. So since many years, I'll have a slide on that in a few minutes. I've been trying to position myself as a bridge between very technical R&D communities that do cutting edge research and between applicability, like between industry and including creative industries, real estate industries, all of the industries that are or might be interested in any kind of 3D imagining. So yes, I like to think about myself as a bridge, as a medium, as a transmitter, and it's lots of fun and it's quite challenging to having to switch the vocabulary from time to time from more research oriented into more market profit KPI oriented.
So like when you carrying out those enterprise trainings for the companies, what kind of the KPI they would like you to help with?
Of course, they're interested in what way they can actually apply those novelties that I share with them. They're interested whether they should just have it on the radar, or they should really start thinking about how they can really apply. There are interesting cases like lately I've been talking a lot with the game development industry, and they're super excited about all those novel AI related stuff, but they're still skeptical about what are the short-term to mid-term benefits of like going AI instead just relying on all those tools and methods and pipelines that were battle tested for the last 20 years and they just work. So different and also generation wise, of course, younger people like juniors are more keen to, okay, so nice, can you share a specific GitHub repo I can just dive in and see for myself, whether higher management or more like business oriented people, they're like, yeah, cool, nice, but what are the costs? What more like senior like lookout into the things. So it's also interesting to observe this dynamics.
I see. So students are always the people with the most innovation passion.
Yes, students, but students, yes, students, but also junior workers in a game dev company or in a startup. Yeah.
So personally, do you think these new generations who haven't or just got into the companies, will they replace the seniors?
At some point, it's inevitable that they will replace the seniors, but I think the best synergy is where the seniors are open to suggestions from the junior staff, while the junior staff can also appreciate, you know, decades of experience coming from the seniors. And in this synergy, I think great things can happen.
Yes, totally agree. Really appreciate those leaders keeping an open mind. And I believe that these leaders gonna be drive fast in the new AI and metaverse era to all those tracks. And definitely it's very hard for them to be replaced by the others. And probably in the AI, I believe there is not going to be like super demand of the leaders' roles. So probably one leader, two leaders currently can be like shrinking to one leaders. So that's just a crucial. And I heard you mention the people skeptical of this leader's attitude. I believe some of them are skeptical in natural, and some of them their skeptical is quite makes sense because they really need to balance the cutting edge technologies and their business KPIs adoption. So this is a deep question I'm going to reserve for the third session. So I see you working in Hong Kong and Portland for a long time. So do you think like which region you like the best? Do you see a big difference among the regions that inspire your tech projects?
So just to clarify, for the last 7-8 years, I've been primarily Hong Kong based. So I actually use the last few months here in Europe to reconnect with the communities, and also I discovered that some new communities emerged, and I'm quite happy to make bridges between those communities, because my main reason behind coming to East Asia in 2016-17 was to be closer to the, you know, the last VR revolution. That was the place where HTC was. That was the place where all those hardware innovations were happening. And now I'm coming back to Europe. I see a growing ecosystem of content producers, software houses, and software developers also for immersive content design. So I see finally a nice synergy between those two worlds. Of course, East Asia in general, Greater China, it has its own energy that can't be compared to anywhere else. Like the speed of innovation, of, you know, how often the trends change. This is unmatched. Europe is a little bit more reserved and also more skeptical, and of course there are different regulations that many EU based companies have to comply with them. So it's a little bit of a different dynamics. But I really like, I've been really enjoying the last 6 months being a little bit here, a little bit there, to just learn more and compare.
I see. That's very interesting sharing, because we haven't met a lot of people like you being the bridge among different quantities. So your experience very unique. Okay, so I guess it's the time I need to stop talking and pass the mic to LUKASZ to show your wonderful works. You can start with sharing your screen.
Okay, just confirm whether you see my presentation slides full screen.
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Awesome. I'm gonna turn off my camera right now, just not to distract you. I kept the microphone. Apologies from the very beginning. I have lots of video content. I know this is not the best setting to present video content. So whenever you see a choppy video, imagine it's 60 frames per second in reality. Sorry for that. So this is the first slide, because the organizers encouraged me to tell something about myself, more like a personal journey. So actually, for the last 15 years plus, I've been always trying to position myself at the intersection of the technological and of the humanities and of liberal arts, and I've been trying to make the best out of those two worlds, and always remember that any tech innovation you're involved with, it has to begin and it has to end with humans, and with our values, and with our goals, and with our aims. So this is a slide I always include in my presentations as my values slide, basically. So one slide on my profile. So basically on the academic side, I'm mainly interested in what's called creative software studies and real-time 3D design pipelines research. So in plain language, I try to map emerging ways of designing 3D content and speculate on their applicabilities, on their strength, on their weaknesses, and in what ways they can be useful to different kind of industries. Also on the practical side, I design real-time and immersive media experiences, mainly using 3D game engines. So for example, software like Unity or Unreal Engine. If this rings a bell, this is my ecosystem. This is what I've been mainly doing. For the last year, as we've already discussed, I've been sharing my time between academia and industry, consulting and networking. So I've been lecturing on the future of moving image at the School of Creative Media at the CTU, teaching on the emerging pipelines for volumetric video and for AI assisted video. And 1 year ago, it was still a niche. Right now, it's a booming space. So I was happy I could equip my students with some tools and skills before it was cool. And I also do research in expanded cinema, so new ways of making cinematic content and large-scale visualization at HKBU. For the last year, I've been traveling all over the world, doing masterclasses and trainings for companies, and also at media arts events, at creative industries events. I've been also teaching at 3 different universities on 2 continents, trying to equip students with the latest insights and latest tools and latest approaches in 3D content design. Yes, and these are some of the stills of the students' shorts that they've designed during my classes. 2 or 3 slides on my research and practice. So on the practical side, so what I do if I design, what kind of experiences I design. So I usually design experimental cinematic stuff using either VR or techniques rooted in procedural cinematography. So I don't do animations. I do like real-time responsive apps that generate those 3D experiences in real time, and they can be interactive. They can react to audience or to algorithmic logic that's programmed in it. These are some of the examples of my previous works, including some VR works. There are papers on that, so let's not delve too much into this. And then we are slowly navigating towards radiance fields and towards new methods of 3D capture. So imagine there's a photo you can actually walk into, you can use in your 3DX video project, you can share online, you can make a spatial video with. And one of the techniques to do so, it's called NERF. It's a neural radiance field, and it's a fully connected neural network that can generate novel views of complex 3D scenes based on a partial set of 2D images. So in a nutshell, in a very simple way, it works by taking input images, representing a scene, and interpolating between them to render one complete volumetric scene. NERF is a very computationally intensive algorithm. However, new algorithms and new related techniques are being developed, and they dramatically improve performance. And this field of already applicable research, it has a little over 3 years old, and you have dozens of startups and software companies and hardware companies, including mainland based, that are exploring those techniques and are using those techniques in their products. So on the more creative side, those are kinds of videos that you can actually design with, you can actually shoot with using those volumetric techniques. That was a viral video 2 years ago. It was an open call organized by NVIDIA that helped those artists to experiment with those tools. But imagine, for example, if you have a music video to make, you can enhance your music video aesthetics and attractiveness using those still matrix-like bullet effects. So that was one of the first use case of radiance fields in commercial video. What if something closer to your turf? What if you have a large area to scan, like an apartment or even an open scene. This is an example of scanning an indoor scene using radiance fields techniques and then displaying them on a Quest. On the right, you have a more pro approach. I think this is browser based. One of the companies that offers this kind of software. What if you have a spatial explorable postcard to make? So for example, this is an Unreal based experience. So creative technologist was on his holidays in Italy, and instead of shooting a boring video, he decided to capture some of the key moments from his journey using those radiance fields techniques, and then later he imported it into Unreal Engine and made an interactive piece, different scenes. What if you have an e-commerce use case? So there are techniques to display content online, but some of the granularity, some of the fidelity is usually lost. And those new techniques, they enable to capture and then embed online quite lightweight, very detailed view models with view-dependent effects. So you have reflections, you have specularities. It's great for translucent objects as well. So how those novel methods of capturing, processing, and displaying 3D reconstruction of real-life objects, sites, and locations be used to create aesthetically interesting content, like interactive and playable data? So what I do usually, I'm investigating what are the limitations of using those techniques and how the conceptual and aesthetic space in between digital twins and visual representations can be leveraged to create new use cases in the creative industries and beyond. So some of my experimentations are concerned either with object capture, with using different software and different hardware configurations. And based on that, when a company approaches me, I can offer, because I have this landscape of available tools pretty well mapped out. So I can lead them to the right direction or just co-design something with a company. You might recognize this famous place in Causeway Bay. I captured it all in like 10 minutes. And then this is a version of a walking simulator, but you could totally make an animation out of it, like this church in Poland. It's a little bit rough, but I just wanted to make sure that I can share something with you that, there's not an NDA on that. So I have a few scenes that I can share with the public. Here we have example of another outdoor scene. So this is in totality 1 square kilometer scanned in about 25 minutes, processed over a few hours. And based on that, you have a content piece that you can work with in your game engine. You can make a video out of it. This is another example of different ways of capturing those environments. So this is a historical hammock in Korea. On the creative industry side, I currently have a Hong Kong-based project, and it's an ongoing exploration of those techniques. And then this is also in the field of material culture heritage preservation. And over the course of the last year, I've scanned a historical Hakka mansion in new territories that it's in a state of decay. So also my work is aimed at preserving it. And based on those different scans in different atmospheric conditions, using different gears, I can also test the technologies themselves. So I kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. This is, for example, a digital twin level reconstruct. Again, apologies for the choppy video on your side. It's really 36, depends on the hardware, 30, 60 real time. So it can be either a backbone of an animation, of a video game level, of a potentially, if it's not a decayed mansion but a new apartment building, it can be a presentation of a nice real estate project. This is more of an artistic take on the very same space. Here, using all those glitches and imperfections to present the mansion in a more artsy, dreamy, memory-like scene. It's the very same location, just using different techniques. And again, different ways of displaying this content. At HKBU, we have access to cutting-edge displaying devices like this 360-degree D-wall, also real time. So I could experiment with that as well, and also checking how those new neural radiance techniques, what happens if you position them next to the traditionally developed 3D assets? If there is an uncanny valley, or if this content works great next to another. This is a rough comparison of the very same space, scanned using different techniques and presented in a different way. And just as a sneak peek, I'm developing another creative project based on the same scans. Here I'm also leveraging Chinese landscape painting aesthetics, but this is more of a sneak peek, so I won't tell too much about it. If everything goes well, you'll be able to see this artwork somewhere in Hong Kong in the next year. I also test some challenging scanning conditions, like this nighttime scan of a historical street in Warsaw. Again, so sorry for the choppiness. This video is on my LinkedIn, so if you're interested, you can check it out. I'm just gonna play it. It was quite challenging to capture it during nighttime, but also very interesting glitches appeared, and I think it really speaks a lot about the history of this building, because it was destroyed during the war. So those roots, as I call them, they really metaphorically tell something about the history of that building. And if you're interested, just to try it out, I think the best option to enter this world of neural radiance fields capture are those 2 free apps you can download on your phones and start experimenting. This is what I usually start with my students, or at the industry workshops that I do. That's the first day of like working with those techniques. So highly encourage you to check it out. And of course, let's connect. I'm mainly active on LinkedIn, posting quite often. So if you want to stay in touch with me, that's the best way to do so. And yeah, see you at SIGGRAPH, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your fruitful sharing. Yeah, I see very cutting edge and unique outcomes from your different adoption of technologies. So before we dive into the works you have completed, I would like to know more about yourself, like your personal journeys. I see you have an interdisciplinary background in art and social science, just like you said in the first page. So why you choose to study such a niche field? Do you still remember your decision before choosing your education path?
I was so my first diploma is actually in continental philosophy. I was just interested in training my brain to work well, and then based on that, I could learn. The assumption was, if I train my brain well in the early days, reading about different ways of looking at reality, at problems, at values, at ethics, and then I'll be able to learn almost anything in the future. And for the most part, it's true. Thanks to this, I see myself as a quite open-minded person, open to different opinions, and based on that, I think I can just achieve more and see more, and then share more as well. But I was always close to computers. After reading those classical philosophers for a few hours, I would usually play a video game. I would tinker with my PC. I would shoot a video or shoot a photo. So I was always close to this creative side, like image-related creative side of things. And at some point in my career, when I was doing my PhD, it somehow finally converged. And right now I'm navigating those worlds, two or three of them. Yeah.
So it's like starting from your PhD, you start to dive into the emerging technologies, right?
Yes, on the actual doing things, because reading and analyzing, I had a short experience journey, like a foresight researcher when I was still in Europe. So we were researching, we were assessing those emerging texts, but I haven't actually, done any practical work with those technologies. But only when I started doing my PhD, I was like, yes, this is a very interesting time in my life, that I have finally space and time to actually experiment with practice. And also, I think being in China, East Asia, and your focus on actually applicability, practice, doing it, also like this whole environment also encouraged me to get out of my theory comfort zone, and actually I ventured out into practice as well.
Well, sounds like you had a lot of practical opportunities during your PhD. What kind of opportunities coming from? Like It's coming from real estate, it's coming from conservation or something else?
So mainly it came from the creative industries and from the art world. So it was also quite safe for me because again, there are no immediate questions about KPI. So I had time to develop my skills, to actually reflect on that. And since the last 2-3 years, I started talking more with like actual industries but so over there, I hear more questions about applicability, when, how much, with whom, why so expensive, but initially the first few years were very cozy. So I also cherish this opportunity that actually Hong Kong government who sponsored my PhD gave me.
Yes. Well, I always consider that the cozy environment is actually the most suitable atmosphere for innovation.
In the beginning, because you cannot stay in this cozy bubble for too long, because then you're just not navigating without contributing to the society. Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah. So I believe actually my first knowledge about VR and AR, the first time I heard about these technologies can date back to my IMARC when I was like learning the Master of Architecture. And I believe that the VR and AR technology at that moment is very different comparing to when the AI come into the game plan, right?
Yeah.
So do you see like the journey of how AR, VR, XR develop together hand in hand with AI, how the things evolve?
I'm really interested, a little bit frightened because I'm like getting older, so the fear kicks in. But I'm really interested in this development that I see lately, that those new AI models that do even spatial things, like when you look at those models that create gameplay from DeepMind, Google, or like other players. This is quite interesting because they're just skip all the technicalities in the render pipeline, like all these equations, spatial 3D. They just go to the pixel level. So basically, it's quite interesting to see how they drop. They see little need in delving too much into 3D graphics as we used to think about 3D graphics for the last 20, 30 years, but they are able to synthesize the finite content. So what you're getting normally from your 3D render pipeline at the very last stage, like the rasterized flat image, basically. So this is really interesting. So at some point, maybe what we know about game engines today, they might be obsolete, or they might be irrelevant, because you as a user might be able to just like quote unquote prompt your spatial experience, or you'll be able to see a spatial experience that hasn't been designed in an old school way, like manually, dragging models, making scripts and everything, but basically just based on camera move here, camera move there, just finite rendering. So this is extremely interesting and extremely groundbreaking for the whole industry, because you have millions of jobs attached to those old ways of doing 3D. But I think we're still few years from that. But if I was a technical artist at the game dev studio, I would have totally looked at that in a more serious way.
I see. So I believe currently you have already definitely far from your comfort zone already, right? So I believe that situation comes from the adoption of new technologies. We always say that there are many challenges for new technologies, cutting edge technology to be used in the commercial world. So can you share a story about how you overcome one of such challenges?
The problem is I'm not really allowed to talk about the coolest stories. That's the thing.
Okay.
That's the thing. But I might say something from the teaching world that might be applicable to. So a student asked me. So I was presenting a workshop to a group of game dev students at the private game dev training facility. And one of the students, he already knew about those radiant fields techniques. And he was like, yeah, but what are you saying is not a big technical problem, because we could just approach this problem from a different perspective. Like instead of doing basically it was about, instead of doing something real time, we could do an animation based on that. And I see a real value in people who are not so focused in their own field, not so attached to usual way of doing things, because then they can see novel ways, new ways, more straightforward, more economical ways of applying those new tools. And I think it's going to be also easier for the new generations to apply those cutting edge tools than for people like me or even older who's been, you know, oh, I know how to design a 3D character. You just open Blender, you do, you know, sculpting, blah blah blah, and then you apply texture. But what if you can just prompt it? Yeah, I know right now it's not really well optimized, it's not processing well, it's like resources hungry. But what I've seen over the last year, from very, you know, choppy crappy 3D meshes to potentially usable assets, this is a great journey. This is the pace is staggering.
Okay, that's a very touching story from the teaching aspect, and I believe that you have definitely enjoyed all these workshops you have led, right? And I'm going to only ask you two more questions so that I can pass the opportunities for the audience. I shouldn't be so selfish to keep your time. And the next question is something that I find from your LinkedIn. I see someone endorse you with very interesting comments that you actually reach very good balance between the technology aspect and the business aspects. So I would like to know, is there any like noises or advice coming from the market have influenced your choice on your technology directions?
So usually I try to be as close to off-the-shelf used ecosystems, both hardware and software, as possible. Because of course, if you're making another avatar and you have 100 million at your disposal, you can make everything custom, you know, just for one use case, just for one thing.
Yes.
But usually in a real world scenario, you try to cut down costs as much as possible. So instead of getting, like in my case, instead of getting always super expensive photo cameras, you can do a lot with just your iPhone Pro if you know how to use it, basically. So usually when I talk with companies, I really encourage them to, you know, check first whom you have already in the crew. Maybe there are some people who have skill sets already, and you actually don't need to send 20 people to this expensive training somewhere. Or there's a gear, there's an equipment, there's software that you can use in a slightly different way, and it will do the job 85%. And if it does the job 85%, maybe it's not reasonable to buy something new just to make this 15% better. Yeah. So
yes. Your methodology is very aligned with the lean startup spirit.
Yeah.
Use the existing solutions and cut the cost and to reach the maximum you can get. No need to driven for the 100% perfect at the very beginning, right? So, and yes, and with your education background, I'm sure you are a lifelong learner. So you have already introduced that you train yourself with a very open mind and keep learning new things, new technologies. So looking ahead, what tech trends excite you the most, and how will you use them in your work? It's like, what's the next item on your to learn list?
So since I've spent so much time over the last year on this reality capture stuff, so how I take real life objects and environments, how I make them 3D, I think I should, since the pace of development of those 3D like synthesis from those text to 3D or image to, this has really greatly improved since because I've been experimenting with Comfy UI with those tools when they were still interested in images, basically. Videos a little bit, but mostly images. But right now you can also use them to do 3D synthesis from 2D images or from text. So this is my next area, because I really would like to keep up with that. And I was always very, very interesting, and because I don't like too much personally. I know that sometimes it's just necessary because it's easy for like you can just get more customers. But all those cloud-based solutions, I'm not big fan of that. I really prefer to process some of the LLMs or some of the other models, like some of the open source diffusion-based models on my gear. I know it can be expensive and you won't have the same results, but at least to understand what are the intricacies of doing this stuff, what are the stages, like in Comfy UI, what are the nodes and what each node is doing. I really value this more than just a black box solution from company A or from like company B. I know sometimes for the majority of clients, buying a service, a cloud-based service from a company makes more sense. But I need to be a little bit ahead of that in order to later tell those guys who wants to buy specific product from the companies, from which company they should buy, or maybe we should design something together. So yeah.
Okay, I believe that combination of what you have just mentioned, the NERF model, together with a large language model, like diffusion model and etc., is gonna be super power in the future. And probably is the trend that not everyone see yet, because everyone knows the potential of large language model and diffusion model, but not everyone heard about NERF. So
Yeah.
I guess it's the time for audience to share their ideas, their questions, and to learn more from you. Okay, so Q&A session. Do we have any questions? You can just enter in the chat box.
Hello. So I think like it's really cool that you're using AR VR to like capture the reality and also like some architecture I can see from your sharing before. But then like, can you share a little bit more on like how do you think AR and VR will be integrated into other discipline work, for like other than just art creation? Like how do you think AR and VR will be integrated into other industry too?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I think that the industry likes to have this umbrella term XR, and then there's AR, mixed reality, MR, and there's VR. But I really would like to emphasize the importance of augmented reality and mixed reality. And I think that even though VR is super cool and it's great for entertainment, this might be a niche for longer, for specific use cases, because at the end of the day, you're a one person, you know, in a with a tin box on your head, and you're just detached from your reality in order to see some different reality. And we know the narrative, presence, illusion, everything. But I think that what I would keep particularly after WWDC Apple last week, 2 weeks ago, the latest Apple conference, where they shared the latest user interface idea. I would really follow closely what Apple has been doing with their Vision Pro, because I think that rightly implemented mixed reality and augmented reality might be the next smartphone thing. Like if you look at this Meta Ray-Bans, there was a partnership, I forgot with whom, but I think it was HTC and Meta or some key player, I don't know now. But basically all those efforts that try to like take your sight away from a flat screen of your smartphone and put all this contextual information around you in your field of view. I think this is where we're headed right now. And actually AI with the computer vision models, with spatial awareness, with spatial audio, with all this spatial stuff that we're hearing in different industries, it might come to get together in this basically a new personal everyday device that's sitting right here somewhere. Yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. That's a very good question. Do we have more questions from the audience? Okay, so today's event is going to end in a happy ending. We are going to upload this recording into our YouTube channel. So if you would like to look at LUKAS's previous sharing again, you can follow our YouTube channel. Okay, thanks, LUKASZ, for your sharing today. I think it's a very niche, cutting-edge technologies. I believe a lot of people haven't heard about yet. So today we are touching some new things in the AL community. Thanks for your generous sharing.
Thanks for the invitation, and see you all on LinkedIn, I hope. And next time in Hong Kong somewhere. Thank you.
Yes, okay, let's meet in person. Okay, thanks everyone to join. Okay, bye.
Bye.